So we've all spent money this year, and I know a lot of people do videos where they talk about their worst purchases of the year, and I've made some shocking ones, I'll admit, but none of them really stand out to me as really big mistakes. But I will say that this year I have brought some really great stuff, and I just wanted to share it with you. This video is completely unsponsored. I brought all these things with my own money and am recommending them to you genuinely because I think they're great products and services. But having said that, there is one thing that I have brought this year that was an absolute mistake, and I will talk about that at the end of the video, so stay tuned. Alright, so my first best purchase of 2021 was my Apple Plus Fitness membership. Now in Australia, the Apple Plus Fitness membership is $14.99 a month or $119.99 annually. I personally get it as part of my Apple Premiere Pro membership, which costs me $39.95 a month. So when the Apple Plus Fitness became available, I just started testing it out, and I honestly really love it. I use it multiple times a week. I use it as supplementary things to my training program. So I use it mostly to do core work, Pilates, and yoga. But having said that, the classes that they offer are just immense. I don't actually know of another membership that has as many classes offered in it. So you can do HIIT, dance, strength training if you want. There's rowing, bike sessions. It's just fantastic. In each different type of class, there are various class lengths. So you can go from 5 minutes all the way up to about 40 minutes, I think is the longest I've seen. So it really can work in with your day. If you're running late or you only have a little bit of time, you can do a 5 or a 10-minute class, or if it's the end of the day and you want to absolutely belt out a massive session, then there's the 40-minute ones. They do update the classes weekly. Not every week you get a new class for every type of class, but I would say most weeks you at least get 1 or 2 of every class. And the other thing that I really like about it is that you can choose not only your intensity level, but you can choose how much equipment you have or do not have. So for instance, in the core one, you can use a lightweight, like there are ones where it has a lightweight, or you can do classes without any weights at all. And yeah, look, honestly, I really love it. So previous to this, I had been using the Nike Training Club app on my phone to do my core work and like my yoga and Pilates. And look, honestly, there was nothing wrong with that. And I would recommend that. I don't know that they update that or are maintaining it as frequently as they did, because I'm pretty certain Nike is aligned with the Apple Plus Fitness. But the Apple Plus Fitness will work on your iPhone, on your Apple TV, on your laptop, or on your iPad. So it is really portable, and that's really what I liked about it. I can plug it into the Apple TV and have it on a bigger screen, because trying to do the session on the smaller iPhone, I found that quite difficult. So but all up, I absolutely love it. I would highly recommend it. As I said, there's a class in there for every experience level in every type of class. So I think you'd find something there for you. The only caveat I have found is I do think you need an Apple Watch to make it work. I'm sure now you don't, but when I first started it up and to try it, you did have to have an Apple Watch. But I'm not sure, because you can add people to it now. So maybe as long as someone has an Apple Watch, you can sync other workouts to your phone. I'm not sure, but I do think you would need an Apple Watch somewhere along the line at some stage, but that would be sort of my only downside of it. Talking on Apple Watches, my second best purchase of the year was my brand new Apple Watch. Prior to replacing my Apple Watch, I had an Apple Watch Series 3 cellular, and I'm pretty certain I was given it basically the day it came out. They had not been out very long. I had an Apple Watch before that. They didn't do cellular, and I wanted the cellular functionality just because I like the idea of, if I'm out for a run, I don't like to take my phone. I like to know that if I fell in a hole and broke my ankle, I could quite easily call for help. I wouldn't have to try and find someone to help me, or have to try and hobble home. So that's really why I wanted the cellular as soon as it became available. My watch, being a Series 3, was quite old, And during 2020, during the COVID lockdowns in Queensland, I lent very heavily on the watch. I used to program it for the intervals I needed to run. I used it to check distances when I was running, because while sporting fields remain open in Queensland, they weren't maintained necessarily. So when I had to run the certain like specific distances, I needed to make sure that what I was running was as accurate as it could be at the time. And I also used it to time my longer runs. But I really noticed that, you know, I would be GPSing it for distance accuracy, I'd be timing it, and I'd also be syncing music through my AirPods. And I just noticed that the battery wasn't lasting as long. Sometimes it had issues syncing to the apps I was using or syncing to the AirPods. I kind of limped along for a while with it. It wasn't too bad. You know, I could just charge it when I got home, and for longer sessions where, you know, I knew that the watch battery wouldn't last as long, I made sure I took a stopwatch and sort of measured out the distance, put a marker down, and then worked everything around that. But where I really decided that I needed to upgrade it was, you know, midway through the year. The watch just stopped syncing to everything. So Apple Watches sync to your iPhone, and it would just not sync. So I'd have to manually do the sync to get the data off it, to check it, so it was all up to date on my phone, so that if my coach wanted to look at stuff, he could easily look at it on my phone. It kept dropping out the AirPods midway through the run, and at first I thought it was the AirPods, but I got new AirPods and that same thing was still happening. And then the thing that really just tipped me over the edge and made me realize I needed a new Apple Watch was I'd charge it overnight and I'd check it first thing in the morning, and it would say that it was 100% charged, and then about 9 a.m. it'd be like, oh hey, I have less than 10% battery. So it just wasn't holding its charge, or it wasn't charging on the charger. So it meant that I had to start taking a charger everywhere. So I decided to just bite the bullet and get a new Apple Watch. And I think the thing why I found this to be one of my best purchases of the year is because for the first time ever, I actually sat down and looked at the Apple Watch options on the market. What I would usually do is just go, okay, the Series 7 cellular is the newest and the best. That's what I'll go with. But I sat down and those watches were like close to $800. And I know what I use my Apple Watch for, and I just didn't see $800 worth of it. There were so many things in it that I just don't use. And you know, the extra features between the SE, which is what I ended up getting, and the Series 7, just I couldn't validate it in my mind. So in the end, I ended up going for the Apple Watch SE Cellular. So the watch itself was $499 because I did get the cellular version, and it easily transferred everything over from my existing Series 3. And honestly, I don't notice any difference between my watch and the Series 7. I was pretty lucky. I did go down to Apple to buy it because I wasn't 100% confident that I could get the watch to transfer over, because I'd been having a few issues with it, so I did want them to do it. And I did have a look at the Series 7, but in the end, I just went with the SE like I planned on. Absolutely in love with my new Apple Watch. The slightly bigger face makes it just a little bit easier to see data when I'm on my long runs on the weekend. And yeah, I would highly recommend upgrading and sitting down and using the comparative tool if you are in the market for a new Apple Watch. All right, so my third best purchase of the year is actually a bunch of purchases, but they're all under the one category, and that is, for the first time ever, I really brought high quality work shoes. Now that probably sounds stupid given someone who is a runner and is pretty pedantic about looking after their feet, particularly given all the foot injuries I have had throughout my career, but pre-COVID, before we all went and worked at home for a year, 18 months, I had some good quality shoes that I sort of saved for better things, but on a day-to-day basis, I sort of just had your cheaper Cotton On or, Kmart and Target Big W shoes. And while there's nothing wrong with those shoes, after having spent a year working from home, and then basically when you went into the office, it was all very casual. So, I had just sneakers on or something like that. The first sort of few weeks where we were back in the office pretty much full time, I really struggled with having low quality shoes. I had become accustomed to having shoes that had a really thick bottom, offered a lot of support on my foot, and just going into my ballet flats again just didn't do it for me. And really what tipped me over the edge was I caught the train one day because it was a Friday and I had these ballet flats on and they just had no sole on them. And I stood on a rock and honestly, I thought I'd sliced my foot open. It hurt so much. So I decided then and there that I was going to upgrade and start buying myself some better shoes. So I am pretty lucky, I will admit that. I mostly wear, you know, sneakers, Nike Air Force Ones or Nike Blazers into the office. Honestly, you'll be amazed at how dressy you can look if you just throw a blazer on top of whatever you're wearing, even if it is sneakers. But having said that, for sort of more formal occasions or things where I need to be a little bit more corporate-y, I have brought a bunch of shoes from like Witchery, Colorado and Country Road and Trenery, and honestly these shoes price between about $69, $70 and up to $200. Closer to the $200 when you're looking at things like boots. But the good thing is that a lot of these shoes are sold through the Iconics. So if you stick them in your favorites list, there's a chance that in a week or so they're going to come on special anyway, so you'll get like 25% off them. But I will just say that I have these shoes now. I know I don't wear them a lot, but they will last for years on end. Whereas with, you know, your Cotton On, your cheaper shoes, you know, I was probably replacing them 2 to 3 times a year, and then I had to buy a few different pairs to go with outfits. So if you just buy 1 or 2 really good classically styled shoes, trust me, you will not regret it. All right, so my second to last great purchase this year, and I have to say I wasn't trying to make this a tech sort of purchase list, but that just seems to be like what most of them are. It definitely is. I went and brought a Theragun Mini. Now, you might be asking, why would I go and buy a Theragun Mini when I have the Theragun Pro, which retails for $899 in Australia? And the reason why I ended up going to buy the Theragun Mini was because the Pro is fantastic. Cannot rate it highly enough. Its only issue is that it's really not portable in everyday life. It comes in a great big box, suitcase thing with all the different heads. It's a little bit chunky and heavy, and it's just not practical for everyday life. It's great at home. I can take it to training, no dramas whatsoever, and it just doesn't look out of place. But I, being an athlete, am often quite sore during the day, and it's not always appropriate for me just to drop down on the ground and pull out a foam roller and foam roll away. While probably most days in my office no one would, you know, blink if I did do that, I don't really want to do that. I don't want to be rolling on the work floor. So I started to look around for some sort of option of a smaller massage gun that I could maybe just throw in my handbag, and I came across the Theragun Mini. Theragun Mini you can put all the heads that you get with the other massage guns onto the Mini, so I felt that was quite helpful, you know, particularly depending on what area was sore. If it's more of a hip flexor, then I can put the little pointy knob on it, but if it's you know, like I'm just trying to get lactic out from a really big lactic session, then I can put the flat head on and really sort of try and scrape it out. The Theragun Mini does retail for $349, so it definitely is probably at a price point that most people will sort of give it a second thought at. But I can tell you that they do come on sale pretty regularly. So I did pay full price for mine because I'd had that many sessions, I just wanted to get it here. So I got mine from Harvey Norman. But I do notice that they do come on sale pretty regularly, like I mentioned, at JB's, Harvey Norman. Even Therabody has pretty regular sales. I mean, I think the best that I've ever seen for all the Theragun range is probably, you know, your Black Friday and your Boxing Day sales. I think they're all about $150 off now, or $50 for the, you know, cheaper ones. So if you are serious about getting it, definitely keep your eyes out for the sales because you will pick them up at a pretty good price. And finally, my best purchase of the year this year, I have to say, there would be some ongoing purchases, and that would be all the professional coaching and care services I pay for regularly as part of being an athlete. So by that, what I mean is my coach Russ, my strength and conditioning coach Andrew, and my physio Mitch. I see Russ multiple times a week. Andrew programs gym for me twice a week. and I see Mitch at least once a month. And honestly, each single one of them is worth their weight in gold. They are a big part of why I am so healthy and pushing towards personal bests this season. And I can't thank them enough. And they are just, the charges for their services every month are just expenses I don't even worry about. I don't even think of them as expenses in a negative turn. They're just costs, I think, of being an athlete, and I am more than happy to pay them every month. You know, Russ has been such a support system over the last few years with, you know, all my injuries and then sort of the difficulties with finding myself as an athlete again. Andrew sort of joined the team a few years ago, and honestly, the gym programming that he has done for me has been adaptive, it's challenging, and you know, Andrew's always there for a chat. I just let him know when we've got big meets and all that sort of stuff, and he just works around with it, and you know, he's available just all the time, and he's so involved, even though it is an online service for me because Andrew does live in New South Wales. But yeah, and then finally Mitch. Mitch has only been my physio for a couple of years. I had been seeing another physio and I just didn't feel that I was getting anywhere with him. I had a lot of reoccurring injuries and I just felt like, yeah, I just wasn't getting anywhere, like I said. And then there was a significant fee increase for his services, and it was just a point where I went, I can't see any value at the old price. Why would I be paying this new price? So I started looking around and I came across Mitch, and I don't know if Mitch knows this, but I actually wanted to see the gentleman who owned the practice he used to work for, but he didn't have a booking, and I had something that was niggling at me and I really wanted to get seen at. So Mitch had a lot of experience in sports, so I went to see him, and honestly, I have not looked back. Mitch is just a fantastic physio, and he's a big part of why I'm so fit and healthy at the moment and can take whatever Russ and Andrew throw at me. So I will just say, if your goal for the next year is to get fit and healthy, a big part of your success will be investing in the services to get you there. So don't, you know, freak out if someone's charging a high price. Sit down with them and talk them through your goals and, you know, what you're getting for the service to see if it aligns with you, because seriously, paying a premium for a service that gets you where you want to be, you will never be disappointed in that. And I will also say, if you are new to working out or, you know, training or anything like that, or you're trying to be more active, definitely go and see a physio when you're starting up. They'll give you a heads up on things that, you know, might cause problems down the track, particularly if you've lived a very sedentary lifestyle for a very long time. They can tell you things to, you know, mention to your trainer. A good trainer should really recommend you go and have some sort of health assessment so that they don't do you any damage. But you know, if you preempt it and go and talk to them already, you can give them a whole bunch of information that you didn't even know about yourself beforehand. All right, so those are my 5 fantastic purchases for the year. But as always, you spend money, you do make mistakes. And I have to say that my worst purchase of the year this year was my iPhone mini. Now, I will just say off the bat, there is actually nothing wrong with the phone. The phone is brilliant. The phone does everything we need it to do. But this year, the company I worked for transitioned from company supplied mobile phones to personally owned phones that you get an allowance for them to access your use of their phone. So I already had 2 numbers. I really like to keep the distinction between work and private life. So I already had 2 phones. And this year, when we switched over to that plan, my phone did actually need upgrading. I had an iPhone XR and I probably could have stretched another year or so out of it, but I figured, hey, I got to get this thing back in my name anyway. I may as well just get a new handset to go with it, just sort of start fresh. I knew how much I was getting a month from the company and it was never going to cover a phone and a plan. So I knew that I would be out of pocket for some of it. Where I struggled with this phone and why this was my worst purchase was that when I knew I'd be paying out of pocket and I knew that I couldn't get everything covered with the allowance, I just went for the cheapest phone I could get. And I did stick with Apple just because I had only ever had Apple phones and I didn't want to take on a learning curve of an Android or something like that. I just wanted a seamless transition. But my personal phone is always a Pro Max. And I've basically, since you had a bigger size option, I've always gotten the bigger size option. I like the bigger screen. And this is a size comparison of the two phones. So my problem mostly comes from the fact that I struggle to type a text message on it because I get about 1,000 keys at the same time. Typing an email is a painful, slow experience, unlike anything I've ever experienced before. And finally, I have to take calls either on my AirPods or with headphones plugged in because I don't know how to hold a smaller phone so that people can hear me when I'm on the phone. It's a constant complaint people have. Like if I'm standing in a room somewhere and my phone randomly rings, I'm not expecting it. People are always like, I can't hear you. And that's just because when it comes to this phone, you can throw it anywhere on your face and they're gonna hear you. This one, not so much. So I really should have thought through the logistics of using a phone and just paid the extra $10 a month and gotten the iPhone 13. So there you have it, my 5 best purchases for the year and the one that I absolutely regret and would think through if I given the second chance. I hope that you enjoyed this. Comment down below your best purchases of the year and anything that you've absolutely failed at buying this year. I generally find for me, when I don't think through purchases, that's when I regret it later on. So that is something that I've definitely tried to do a lot more this year. And I mostly do. I just didn't apply the same tactic to the phone that I did with the watch. And if I had done that, I probably would have been like, hey, that's quite a size decrease. And I probably wouldn't have picked that model. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Here is a preview of my social media. Don't forget to head over to Instagram and follow me there if you want a behind the scenes look of my life, and also the excitement of heading back to the office in a few weeks' time. But as I said, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.